Hi guys, this is Dormouse03. This is The Evil Within, Akumu difficulty, chapter 14, and we're a little over halfway through this level. And this is a section that is different on this mode than it was on survival. I'm sorry if you guys have played on Nightmare and some of these things are the same. I have not played on Nightmare. I went straight from survival to Akumu, so I can't say whether or not the enemy placements and things are the same on Nightmare or not. But this guy is not here on survival, but he is on this difficulty, so I'm going to toss a grenade down here and that will knock him over. I chose to use the grenade there because there's a grenade over to the right that I can use to replace it. And as much as I can, I try to do that. You know, I try to be aware of what stuff there is to pick up and use that type of weapon so that, you know, again, I'm able to not leave any ammo behind. I think I was talking about in the last video, I have this motto of leave no ammo behind, and that's what I try to do. So there's a bear trap right there. That is why you can't just run past that guy. You could probably herd him up the stairs a little bit, then go disarm that trap and move on, but it didn't really cost us much to kill him, so that's what I did. But if you find yourself in a bind with not very much ammunition and stuff, feel free to use that strategy. So we're headed toward the boss of this section, but we've got a couple of tricksy little things to do before we get there. Well, really only one. There's one room that's about to be coming up, and it was absolutely hellacious for me on my survival run. And on this run, I made it first try. And that was, granted, a little bit of luck, which you will see. But it just wasn't as bad for whatever reason. And that could be, as I've said in previous videos, when you struggle on a section on one difficulty, when you do it on the harder difficulty, sometimes it doesn't feel as bad because you've paid your dues on the other one. So what I'm talking about is this room coming up here. And so it's different on this difficulty because the enemies are different. On survival, there were a bunch of alter egos. There were 5 of them, I believe. And instead of 5 alter egos right now, there are 2 traumas. And while traumas seem like a more intimidating enemy, they're kind of slow and it's hard for them to get around in this area, I think, especially after you hit the switch. So what I ended up deciding to do was like, look, I'm just going to go for this button and see what happens. And this part coming up right after I get out of this cutscene is the moment of luck happening. Because as soon as I turn around, there's a trauma right there. I'm getting out my... And why I had to pick up that jar of goo, no one will ever know. But I got so lucky that that trauma didn't hit me right then. There are a couple of alter egos that pop up as well when you hit that switch. And so what I do right now, and this strategy should work. Like, my derping aside and getting lucky of not getting hit, this is the strategy you want to do. You want to put a shock trap down behind you. When it goes away, put another one down. If you haven't quite finished turning the crank, finish turning it, and then run through. And you should be able to run by all of those enemies and only use a couple of shock traps. But don't bother picking stuff up when there's a trauma right there. That's just suicidal behavior. Lock me away. So right here is the Quell, and if you shoot it just there, it won't grab you. Not that that really matters. I mean, you get you use a bullet right there to make him go away, but if he grabbed you, you would have to shoot him 3 times, and that wouldn't use any of your actual bullets. So, I mean, it just depends on whether or not you wanted to do that little scripted moment there. I didn't know what would happen if I shot him there, so I kind of saw him and just reacted, but it may be better to just not waste the bullet there. I wonder whether or not that damage that you do to him affects anything at all. Probably not. The boss fight, he probably has a set amount of health, regardless of whether you shot him the once there or the 3 times in the little action sequence. So we're going to go into the safe room one more time, and there's the map fragment number 27. There will be one more, and that is in chapter 15. And while I'm running through here and upgrading some stuff, let me talk about the Quell boss fight, because I was stalked. I was stalked actually with trap parts and bolts and things, which I think is a really good idea. I think you want to be full of at least the explosive bolts and the shock bolts. Those are the ones that I used on him. The freeze ones would also be really good to do. So, really any of those bolts are going to be useful for him, except for the harpoons if you haven't upgraded them fully. So, I was stuck on him for a little while here, and it's just getting used to the pattern of things. And sometimes you'll get unlucky with a place where he goes when he either goes invisible on the side of a wall or hides up in a pipe or up in the ceiling. Sometimes it'll take you longer than other times to find where he is, and if it takes you a while to find where he is, you may run the risk of getting screwed over by the little leeches that he drops. So the strategy that I would recommend for you is the same one that you're going to see me do. Just know that it might take a couple of tries, because the boss can be a little bit random with, where he chooses to go. So, that being said, we're going to put all the pieces into this, and you want to make sure to get the one over on the right to finish out your little puzzle. That will help you be able to get the key that's on this level at the end, and get into the supply room after we've killed the boss. So I'm going to make sure that I have my bolts on, I have my shock bolts full, I have my explosive bolts full, and if I had set this up the way that I should have, I would also have put my magnum on the D-pad to the right. That's the one thing that I neglected to do that I probably should have done. You don't have to use your magnum here, and if you're running lower on bullets, I would say try not to, but this boss takes a crap load of damage. So if you have some magnum bullets to spare, I would definitely recommend doing that. I have my magnum damage maxed out at the end of the game. I'm not sure if it's maxed here, guys. I'm so sorry. I don't recall. But if it's not maxed out, it's close to. So just know that this magnum is doing a lot of damage to this boss. So I shock him, and then I put as many explosive bolts as I can possibly get off into him before he leaves. And I was able to get 4, which was fantastic. Sometimes you'll only get 3 before he runs away. And then it's just kind of run around and try to keep moving a little bit so that you don't ever get caught, and be constantly looking around, because you want to look for these little leeches. And you kind of follow them back and trace them back to the source of where they're coming from, which is going to be the boss. So use the shotgun to take them out. It's just more effective. And then I use the magnum to get him down, and then put a couple shots in him. I am not 100% certain whether shooting him while he's doing the little flail on the ground actually hurts him, but I assume that it does. So then again, you're going to be looking for the leeches, and you see how quickly I found him that time. That is what happens when, you know, when you get a run where things are going well. You know, is when you're gonna look around and you're gonna quickly be able to spot where he's at. And this does not go very well, because I tried to shoot him with the shotgun out of there, and it took forever for those shots to register. Shoot him with the pistol or the magnum to get him down from there. The shotgun is not very effective. So he might have been dead before that last magnum shot, but there you go. So that makes that fight go a lot more quickly than it would have if you're not using the magnum. If you're not using the magnum, I would say use shotgun or sniper when he's stunned, or put some more explosive bolts into him when he's stunned with the shock bolt. Sometimes when he gets into his animation where he's sliding along the floor and stuff, he will not get stunned by the shock bolt as much, and so you just need to be aware of that. When he's doing that thing where he's sort of slithering like a little torpedo toward you on the floor, sometimes the shock bolt is not as effective in stopping him, and so you do need to be mindful of that and moving away if he does that particular attack. And you do want to stay at kind of a mid to long range away from him unless he is stunned, because his little tentacle swipes have some wicked range on them, and if you get too close to him and he gets off one of those swipe attacks, you are history. So I feel like that fight went pretty well, you know, and it went pretty well because I had, you know, all the weapons and things that I wanted, and had that strategy down, and then I also got lucky with my, you know, being able to find where he was hiding very quickly both times. So again, sometimes you get screwed over a little bit, because if you can't find him right away, sometimes those leeches can sneak up on you, and then you're gonna have a bad day. But fingers crossed, and it'll only take you a few tries to get that pattern pretty good. So you make sure you pick up everything from the little storage room. We've got our key from where there was some electricity across the end of the right little corridor there, and when you turned the crank it made that go away, and so you could go down there and get that key. And we're gonna go in here, and this is our last locker. And in the last locker you always get 100,000 of the green gel, and so use that wisely. I'm gonna max out my sprint, and oh, now we see what my damage was on my magnum. My damage was only at level 2, so it wasn't super upgraded there, guys. It was only at level 2. for that fight. So if you had it upgraded a little bit more, it would do even more damage. But with that 100,000 green gel that we got from the last locker, I was able to fully upgrade it, and so that really helps in the keeper fight on the next chapter. If you have your damage fully upgraded on the Magnum, it will take 3 shots to kill each keeper. So that will be a total of 6 Magnum bullets into the keepers, and that fight is over very, very quickly. If you don't have the Magnum fully upgraded, it will take 6 shots each, or it'll take the amount that it takes. So like it'll probably take 4 to 5 shots if you have it a couple of upgrades into it, and it's like 140, 160%. It'll take 6 shots if it's not upgraded at all, if it's at just base 100%. And so use that knowledge to kind of gauge how many Magnum shots you want to put into those, into the Quell boss here at the end, because you want to... I really, really encourage you to save enough Magnum bullets to kill both of those keepers. Because by the time you get to that point, you just want to have a smooth sailing of it. And that keeper fight can be rough. They put down so many traps. In the other room, there's going to be the little spinny robots on the ground, and it benefits you to plan to be able to do that. So I would say if you need to save 12 Magnum shots, save 12 Magnum shots. As it turns out, you know, I only needed 6, and I have more than that, which is great. So plan accordingly. And if you can't spare the Magnum ammo for the Quell, like I said before, I would say, you know, hit him with sniper, hit him with shotgun, hit him with explosive bolts. Those things will do quite a bit of damage to him as well. It will probably take you a little bit longer to get through that fight than it did me if you aren't using the Magnum, because it is very, very powerful. And I wanted to get through that fight as quickly as possible, because it can be super long. I think it took me 10 full minutes to kill him on survival on my first playthrough. And I mean, part of that was that I didn't know what I was doing, but 10 minutes of a boss fight is a long time. And so when you do know what you're doing, that's potentially like 5 to 7 minutes of that boss if you aren't using Magnum shots, which seems horrific to have to go 5 to 7 minutes without getting hit by a boss. So all of that as my little public service announcement to use the Magnum during that fight if you can spare the bullets, but make sure you save some for the keepers in the next chapter. And we're going to be moving right along to chapter 15 here in just a second. We've got one final little annoyance here at the end of this level. And this is a repeat of the little fight that you had before with these stupid guys in the bathtubs. And so I trimmed out, there's just such a long section of them talking in that little flashback before this, so I cut that out because it infuriated me that I had to sit through it and couldn't skip it. But so I used the same strategy that I did before when we had to do this back in chapter 5, and that is to use the shotgun to make these guys sit down when there's more than one of them. It just makes more sense to use the shotgun because these guys move very, very quickly, and they get up so fast sometimes. It's just unbelievable. You're going to see that happen right now. I knock that guy down. I go to hit B. He's standing right back up. I mean, how unfair is that? It's just absolutely nuts. So you have to be aware of that. And you saw how I sort of run around to the side of them That is to guard against them doing that little flail attack and hitting you with it. I always try to sidestep them and hit B when I'm at the side. And I was doing some awesome hand movements to show that I was going to the side that you can't see. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you chapter 15.